So shift is basically used to do the opposite of whatever it would be otherwise. So enter return is normally down, but shift enter return is up, tab is to the right, shift tab is to the left. Another way you can navigate throughout the spreadsheet is by using the arrows on your keyboard. If you find the up, down, left, right arrows, you can just use those to move up, down, left, or right. It's a little bit more awkward than using enter or shift enter, but that's another option. And of course, you can also use your mouse to click on where you want to go. But I'll tell you, if you can learn to use Excel simply with the keyboard without using your mouse very much, it's really going to go a lot better for you. So I've got my title in there. Now I'm going to click on A2 and I'm going to type in the word title. That's where I'll put the movie title. Now I'll tap tab to move over to the right and I'll put in date purchased, tab again, rating, tab again, value, tab again, genre, and tab again, location. And that will store quite a bit of information for me about my movie inventory. All right, with that last one, when I hit enter, it moved me down and it moved to the left, expecting me to put in the first record is what they call it. And the first record would be the first movie. So let's say I put in Star Wars. Again, I can tap tab to move over to the right. I can say, okay, I purchased it 2007. It's rated PG. It's worth maybe $5 and it's science fiction and it's located in the living room. Okay, so that's an example of data entry, how you can enter data into a spreadsheet by clicking on a cell or somehow getting on a cell, typing, and then hitting either tab to move to the right or enter to move down. Now, as another example, I'm going to type in another record and I'll put in some other information here. And at this point, let's say I notice a misspelled word and I would like to fix that. Okay, you'll notice that I misspelled empire. If I click on cell A4 to try to fix that misspelling, watch what will happen. As soon as I type, it erases what was there. Okay, the reason why is because when I clicked on that cell, when you click on a cell, anything that you type replaces what is there already. It deletes what's there and then replaces it with whatever you type. So there's a distinction I need to tell you about. There's a difference between being on a cell and being in a cell. To get in a cell, you have to double click on it. Okay. Notice what happened when I double clicked on that cell. It actually jumped me inside the cell. And now I have a cursor that's flashing and I can click or I can use the arrow keys to move that cursor where I want it to be. So there is a big difference between being on a cell and being in a cell. In this case, I don't want to be on the cell. I don't want to replace all of the text in this cell. I want to click twice quickly. Now I've jumped inside it and I have this cursor and I can move it where I want it to be, fix the misspelling, hit return. Again, that may seem like a very small, insignificant thing, but Excel is all about details. And all of these little details will really enhance your use of Excel. So please stick with me and pay attention to these details. And I promise your use of Excel will be much more satisfying and effective. Now give me a few minutes to put in a few more records and then I'll resume the tutorial. Okay, so I've finished putting in some movies here and some records is what they're called. Each of these rows contains a record. And to help you see this a little bit better, I'm going to zoom back out a little bit so you can see I've put in quite a few movies here. Now, what we need to do next is dress this up a little bit, make it look a little better. It just doesn't look quite right to our eye at this point. So what are some things that we can do to make this look nicer? First of all, here at the top, my title basically of this spreadsheet, it's kind of off to the side and it doesn't have anything that makes it stand out and look different. So I'm going to click on it on the cell and I'm going to click up here at the top on the home tab and the home ribbon. I can click on bold to give it a bold look. So that will help it stand out. Notice that I can also use the paint bucket tool to paint the background of that cell. I may or may not want to do that. In this case, I don't necessarily want that. So I'm going to click the arrow next to it and I'm going to go to no fill. I can also change the color of the text itself. Okay, so that is also an option. I'm going to go back to black in this case. In addition, I could italicize or underline. Those are all good options to have, but that will help the text stand out a little bit. Another thing I can do is click on cell A1 and drag. I'm still holding the mouse click and I'm going to drag until I've covered all of the content of my spreadsheet. So the content of the spreadsheet ends at column F. I don't have anything beyond that. So I just clicked and dragged to get all the way across. Now watch what I can do. On the home tab, home ribbon, there's a button here in the alignment group called merge and center. And if I click on that, see what it did? It merged all of those cells together. So this is now one big cell and it centered it. Okay, so merge and center is very helpful to do what I just did, to basically break down the walls between these cells and make it one big cell and then to center it. That looks a lot better. The other thing, like I said before, the text not quite fitting in the cell kind of bothers me. So I could go up here to the top, like I showed earlier, and click and drag to make sure everything fits. But I want you to see a shortcut. There's a shortcut to doing this. All you have to do is go up here at the top and just go between any two of the column letters and double click. And if you do that, look what happens. It automatically will perfectly size the column so that all of the text will fit. I could do that also for date purchased and for rating. Now, notice in that case, the rating column actually got narrower. It's because it doesn't need to be longer than what it is now. Okay, so I can do that with value and so forth. Now let me show you yet another trick that's a little bit of a time saver. Instead of double clicking between every single column one at a time, look what I can do. Click and drag on the column letters all the way across to the end of my data, and then double click between any two of these. It doesn't matter which. Double click, and notice now it automatically resized every column. Every column that I had selected was affected by that double click, and now is perfectly sized to fit the content that's in those cells. And if I browse back to the left using this slider, you can see everything is perfectly sized. So I used a phrase there. I said everything that was selected, every column that was selected was affected by what I did. In Excel, that's a nice phrase to maybe think about. Select to affect. If you want to affect it, you must select it first. One more little shortcut, little trick. When you click and drag on those column headings, yes, the fastest way to resize is to then double click between any two column letters, but you could alternatively just click and drag and watch what happens. I'm going to resize this column, let go, and look, every single column was affected because I had selected each. They're all affected by that, and they're all exactly the same width. So hopefully those little tricks will help you to be able to resize your columns the way that makes the most sense for you. And the idea is to make your data look nice, because when it looks good, it's often easier to read, easier to understand and comprehend. Okay, now there are good reasons sometimes to keep columns narrow, even if all the text doesn't fit. So you don't have to always make sure everything is always visible, but I want you to be able to do that when you need to. Okay, next up, I guess I do want to click here on movie inventory and underline it to set that apart as the title. And then down here, I would like to make all of these column names different. So I'll highlight them and I'll go up and make them bold and let's say italicized. Now, the way I did that so fast, you may not have noticed, I simply clicked on the row number and it highlighted the entire row all the way to the right. And so that selected it. And then to affect it, I just chose bold and italicize, and it affected everything that's selected. So at this point, I hope that you are familiar now with the different names of the layout in Excel. We know what to call the different things like the tabs, the groups, the ribbons, things like that. We also know about columns, rows, cells, and ranges, sheets and workbooks. And we know how to enter data and then how to select it, to affect it, and to change how it looks on the screen. And we also know how to adjust the column widths. And I didn't show this explicitly, so let me just quickly do that. Notice that you can affect the rows as well. So I can make rows taller than they would have otherwise been. I can double click between them to perfectly resize. I can affect more than one at a time by selecting more than one row. So all of those same techniques that I showed about the columns can also be used with the rows. So all of this, in my opinion, gives you a good foundation. It helps you understand the basics of using Excel. In a future video, I'll show you some intermediate Excel tips and tricks, ways that you can save time and effort as you're building your spreadsheets. We'll also get into formulas and functions, and that's really where much of the power of Excel is found. And I'll also throw in a couple of advanced Excel tips and tricks. So please watch for that future video. Thanks for watching this Excel Basics video. I hope you enjoyed it, and please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel for more videos about technology for teachers and students, and watch for a new video at least every Monday. Also, I hope